Have you ever made a desperate choice, unaware it would change everything? This queen steals a child, believing she has found her salvation. But she does not know the truth. The child is not even human. The ocean never forgets, and the waters always come to reclaim their own. We unravel the mystery between merfolk and humans in this gripping African folktale, a story of love, fate, deception, the unstoppable call of destiny and the power of the sea. The sun sets over a peaceful village by the sea, casting a warm golden hue across the shimmering waters. The tranquil village of Eguns is a rare place where merfolk and humans coexist in harmony, their worlds interwoven by centuries of shared history. Merfolk, with their opalescent scales that reflect the light like precious gemstones, and their ethereal beauty, glide gracefully through the waters, while humans tend to their homes and fields along the shore. These two peoples, seemingly worlds apart, have long forged bonds of kinship and even marriage, creating a rich tapestry of unity and mutual respect. For generations, these unions have been the foundation of a harmonious world where both species honor the earth beneath their feet and the sea that sustains them. It is a world built on understanding, where the struggles of one people are felt by the other, and their joys are shared. The villagers, both human and merfolk, live side by side in peace, their children growing up together, laughing and playing along the shore. The sight of human and merfolk children chasing one another in games, building sandcastles together, and exchanging stories of their worlds is a common one, symbolizing the enduring unity between the two peoples. The children who were formed by humans and merfolk marriages had the ability to live both on water and land. Once their feet touches the water, it turns to tail, and turns back to legs on it get to the dry land. This was a unique gift. Princess Ebi of the underwater kingdom of Azi recently married a human, an event that was met with great celebration throughout both realms. This union was a momentous occasion, a symbol of the deepening connection between land and sea. The marriage was not just the joining of two hearts, but the merging of two worlds, a fusion of traditions, cultures, and destinies. With the aid of powerful magic, Princess Ebi and her husband were able to live freely between both the land and the sea, moving between the two worlds with ease. Not long after, the princess found herself with child, and the news was met with even greater joy and anticipation. The arrival of her child was seen as a blessing, a sign that the union between the merfolk and humans was not just an act of love but one of fate. Both kingdoms, underwater and on land, prepared for the arrival of the royal heir with grand festivities and celebrations. A massive carnival was held in honor of the child, a spectacular display of joy and unity. The air was filled with the sounds of music, dancing, and laughter, and the sea, once a barrier, now became a stage for celebration. The villagers, both human and merfolk, swam together in the shallows, their joy rippling through the water. The merfolk, ever watchful of their human friends, made sure no one ventured too deep into the ocean, guiding them with gentle hands to ensure that no one strayed into the dangerous depths. The waters and the land, once separate, now felt as one, united not only by the love of Princess Ebi and her husband but by the shared history, the interconnected lives of those who called both realms home. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a vibrant glow across the ocean, it was clear that the future of this union was bright. The child would carry the legacy of both worlds, a symbol of hope and unity, and the promise of a future where the sea and land would forever remain intertwined. One bright day, the peaceful undersea realm was shattered by a violent tremor, shaking the waters like the force of a bomb or an explosion. The once calm and serene depths now echoed with the wailing cries of both merfolk and humans, as fear and confusion spread through the kingdoms. The once tranquil sea turned dark with panic, and the sounds of terror reached the surface, where the people of the land began to feel the unease as well. In the kingdom of Eguns, the royal palace stood tense and silent, with no understanding of the cause of the chaos. The regal halls, usually filled with the laughter and music of a prosperous kingdom, were now thick with apprehension. King Oak and his wife, Queen Udi, paced anxiously within the palace, their hearts heavy with worry. No word had come, no messenger had arrived, and the silence was almost as terrifying as the unknown threat itself. Then, as if summoned by the very weight of the tension, A lone messenger arrived, stumbling into the royal court, his face pale with fear. The messenger, drenched in sweat and trembling, bowed deeply before King Oak and Queen Udi, his voice shaking as he delivered the devastating news. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "all the underwater kingdoms and even the land itself are under attack. A dark force has killed 10 underwater kings, and it is now mercilessly slaughtering the children of both merfolk and humans." His eyes were wide with fear as he spoke of the unimaginable carnage. "I bring news from the kingdom of Azu," he continued. "The dark force is sweeping across both realms, leaving destruction and death in its wake." The room fell silent as the words hung in the air like a dark omen. Princess Ibi, who had been standing quietly by her parents, suddenly gasped, clutching her chest in horror. "My husband," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He just left to return to the land yesterday." Panic and sorrow filled her eyes as she feared for the safety of her beloved. Before they could rally their forces to respond, the unthinkable had already occurred. As they rushed to gather their warriors and arrived at the shore, the land, once vibrant and full of life, was now a battlefield stained with blood. The bodies of innocent children, born of the union between merfolk and humans, lay scattered across the fields and streets. The once laughter-filled homes of the children were now silent, their families torn apart. Some parents, desperate to protect their children, had tried to fight back against the dark force, but they too had fallen, their lives extinguished in an instant. In the midst of the carnage, Princess Ibi's worst fears were realized. Her husband Nonso, a brave man who had stood by her side through everything, was among the fallen. She held him in her arms, her tears mingling with the blood and dirt that covered his lifeless body. In the quiet aftermath, a small burial gathering was held, and the bodies of the fallen were laid to rest. Princess Ibi, her heart shattered, wept for the lives lost, for the future that had been stolen from her, and for the shattered peace between the realms. The kings of the underwater kingdoms, each reeling from the loss of their own people, convened in an emergency meeting. The devastation was too great, the enemy too powerful. After much deliberation, it was discovered that this terrifying assault had been orchestrated by an ancient evil, a dark sorcerer named Urama. A being born from the depths of the earth, Urama had once been a powerful force in his own right, but his thirst for power had led him down a dark path. With his army of shadowy creatures, Urama had set his sights on the merfolk and their human offspring, fearing that the union of these two races would give birth to a child powerful enough to challenge his reign. Urama's army, an army of creatures born from shadows and darkness, swept through both the seas and lands, leaving only destruction in its wake. Villages were burned, cities destroyed, and the once bustling shores were now silent and lifeless. The merfolk, once safe and revered in their domains, were now hunted relentlessly. Their half-human children, those born of love and union between the two worlds, were marked for death. Urama's creatures tore through the waters, their dark claws and fangs ripping apart everything in their path. No one was spared. Those who tried to defend the children, those who tried to protect their homes, all perished. The peaceful coexistence that had once existed between merfolk and humans had been shattered. The dream of unity, of a shared future, was now a distant memory, swept away by the unrelenting force of Urama's wrath. The kings of the underwater kingdoms, once allies in maintaining peace, now stood united in their grief and their determination to stop the evil that had destroyed their world. They discussed strategies and formed alliances, but the road ahead seemed bleak. Urama, with his thirst for power and his army of shadows, was an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The merfolk and humans now faced a fight for survival, one that would test their unity and their strength. Together, they must find a way to defeat Urama and restore the peace that had once existed between their worlds. But as the dark sorcerer's shadow loomed larger, the question remained. Would their combined forces be enough to stop the devastation, or had Urama already won? The battle for their world had only just begun. The underwater kingdom of the merfolk is plunged into chaos as Urama's forces invade, sweeping through coral cities and shattering the once peaceful depths with their merciless assault. The ocean, once filled with the harmonious songs of the merfolk, is now thick with the cries of the wounded and the clash of weapons. Schools of fish scatter in terror as powerful magic rends the waters, turning them murky with debris and destruction. Despite their bravery and strength, the merfolk struggle to fend off Urama's relentless attacks. Warriors like Nkem and Ifediora fight with unwavering determination, their tridents flashing as they strike down enemy after enemy. But for every foe they defeat, more emerge, summoned by Urama's dark sorcery. Shadowy tendrils coil through the water like living nightmares, binding merfolk warriors and dragging them into the abyss. Urama's magic warps the sea itself, twisting currents into deadly whirlpools and poisoning the waters with an eerie, suffocating darkness. One by one, the great merfolk strongholds fall. Palaces of pearl and opal crumble, their luminous beauty reduced to rubble. Grand halls that once rang with music and laughter are now filled with the echoing cries of the fallen. Desperation grips the merfolk as they fight not just for their homes, but for their very survival. Within the royal palace, hidden behind a wall of enchanted coral, Princess Ebi cradles her newborn son in trembling arms. The child, barely days old, whimpers softly, unaware of the devastation consuming their world. Ebi presses a desperate kiss to the baby's forehead, her heart breaking. Her mate, Prince Obesai, has gone to battle and has not returned. The palace shakes with each wave of Urama's onslaught, and Ebi knows the walls will not hold much longer. Tears blur her vision as she makes the hardest decision of her life. Her son must be sent away, far from the destruction. There is no future for him here, not in a kingdom on the verge of ruin. Summoning her most trusted handmaidens, Ebi orders them to prepare an enchanted vessel, one woven with protective spells passed down through generations. It will carry her child to safety, beyond Urama's reach. The baby stirs, his tiny fingers wrapping around Ebi's own. The princess bites back a sob. How can she part with him? How can she send him away, not knowing if they will ever meet again? The palace doors tremble. Cracks splinter through the coral walls. The magic protecting them is weakening. There is no more time. With one last, shuddering breath, Ebi places her son inside the vessel, wrapping him in the softest sea silk. "Forgive me, my love," she whispers. "Leave, and one day return." As the enchanted vessel drifts into the vast open sea, carried by unseen currents, Ebi watches with a shattered heart. The darkness closes in, but she clings to one final hope, that her son will survive, that he will find a new home, and that one day, the blood of the ocean's royal line will rise again to reclaim what was lost. The basket containing the infant Somtachukwu drifts for days, cradled by the waves, carried far from the ocean that birthed him. The magic that once protected him is beginning to wane, its glow fading as the currents push him toward a land untouched by the sea's mysteries. At last, the tides relent, and the basket washes ashore in the distant human kingdom of Agu. Agu is a land of majesty and power, a kingdom blessed by fertile soil and guarded by towering mountains that pierce the sky. Its rivers run deep, winding like silver veins through lush forests teeming with life. Here, the people have never spoken of merfolk, nor do they know the legends of those who dwell beneath the waves. The ocean is but a distant, untamed expanse to them, a place of mystery but not of miracles. Yet on this day, a miracle arrives in a woven basket. Queen Ugama moves through the dense canopy of trees, her royal robes trailing behind her as she walks the familiar path to the riverbank. It is here, away from the opulence of the palace, that she allows her sorrow to breathe. The weight of her barrenness sits heavy on her chest, a grief that even time has not softened. She has come to this river 1,000 times before, whispering prayers into the water, offering silent pleas to the gods to bless her with a child. Yet each time she has returned to the palace with empty arms and an aching heart. But today is different. As she kneels by the water's edge, ready to give voice to her sorrow once more, something catches her eye, a glimmer of movement among the reeds. At first, she thinks it is a trick of the light, perhaps a piece of driftwood carried by the current. But then she hears it cry. sharp and small yet insistent. Her breath catches. She rises swiftly, wading into the shallows, her pulse quickening. With trembling hands, she parts the reeds. And there, nestled within a woven basket, is a child. Boy. His tiny chest rises and falls. His skin cool and damp, as if kissed by the waters themselves. Wisps of dark curls frame his round face. His lips parted in soft whimpers. He is swaddled in strange, delicate fabric, unlike anything Urama has seen before. Smooth as silk, yet shimmering with an ethereal glow. Her heart pounds as she carefully lifts the infant from the basket, pressing him close to her chest. A warmth spreads through her, an overwhelming sense of love unlike anything she has ever known. Tears prick her eyes as she gazes down at him, a silent knowing settling deep within her soul. This is no accident. This is no ordinary child. This is a gift from the gods. Urama returns to the palace with the child cradled in her arms, her heart thundering with emotion. When she enters the great hall, King Icum rises from his throne, his expression shifting from curiosity to shock as he takes in the sight before him. A child, he murmurs, stepping forward. I found him by the river, Urama says, her voice trembling with conviction. Or rather, the river gave him to me. The king studies the infant, his brows furrowed. Who would abandon a child in such a place? I do not know, Urama answers truthfully. But, my king, I cannot ignore what I feel in my soul. This child, he was meant for us. The gods have answered our prayers. Icum hesitates, glancing between his wife and the baby. He has seen the years of sorrow etched into Urama's face, the quiet suffering of a woman longing for a child that never came. He has felt his own grief, his own unspoken pain, as they watched the kingdom thrive yet failed to produce an heir. But now here is a child delivered to them by the river itself. Slowly the king nods. Then he is ours. Word spreads through ACO like wildfire. The queen has been blessed with a son. A grand festival is declared, and for 7 days and nights, the kingdom erupts in joyous celebration. The palace gates are open to the people, who flood the royal grounds in colorful attire, bearing gifts of gold, spices, and fine fabrics. Dancers perform under the glow of torches, their movements weaving stories of blessings and divine favor. Musicians fill the air with the sound of flutes and drums, their rhythms echoing through the hills. The king and queen sit upon their thrones, beaming with pride as they present their son to the people. Somtachukwu is bathed in sacred oils, dressed in royal garments, and officially named the heir to the throne. Cheers erupt, and voices rise in praise of the gods who had finally answered the royal couple's prayers. But beneath the revelry, whispers stir. How can this be? Some murmur in the shadows. The queen was never with child. She was never seen with a swollen belly, yet here is a son, others question, exchanging uncertain glances. Some believe in the queen's divine blessing, convinced that the gods had placed the child in her arms. But others are not so sure. Quiet suspicions linger among the nobles and the elders of the court. They do not challenge the king and queen, nor do they voice their doubts openly, but the unease remains. Urama senses it. She sees the questioning eyes, hears the hushed voices behind closed doors. But she holds her head high, refusing to acknowledge the doubts. She will not let anything taint this moment, will not let any uncertainty shake her belief that this child was meant for her. Somtachukwu grows into a bright and beloved boy. The people of ACO cherish him, and his parents dote on him, raising him with love and wisdom. He is strong, quick-witted, and fearless, everything a future king should be. But there is something else, something unspoken. The first time Urama notices it, she is watching him play near the palace fountain. He leans over the water, reaching into the cool depths, and for a moment, just a fleeting moment, his legs shimmer. The sunlight catches his skin, and where once there were legs, a tail flickers into existence. A glistening, iridescent tail, the color of moonlit waves. Urama gasps. But just as quickly as it appeared, the tail is gone. His legs returned to normal. Had she imagined it? She says nothing. Not that day. But then it happens again. One evening, as Somtachukwu bathes, the water ripples unnaturally around him. When Ugama peers closer, she sees it. His feet have vanished, his lower half transforming into the unmistakable form of a merfolk's tail. The sight steals the breath from her lungs. Panic grips her, but she forces herself to remain calm. She does not scream. She does not call for the king. Instead she watches. When Somtachukwu steps out of the water, his legs return as if nothing had changed. He does not seem to notice the difference. He is a child, carefree, innocent. He does not yet understand what he is. But Ugama does. A terrible fear settles in her chest. She does not know what this means, only that it must be kept secret. If anyone in Egu were to discover this truth, if they were to see what she had seen, what would they do? Would they still love him? Would they still call him their prince? Or would they see him as something else? Something unnatural, something dangerous. And so, with a heart burdened by uncertainty, Queen Ugama locks the secret away. She watches over Somtachukwu with even greater care, praying that the day will never come when the world learns what he truly is. But deep down, she knows that secrets have a way of rising, just like the tide.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay connected by leaving your thoughts in the comments, giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new content drops. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video.